Ghidorah's neck wrapped around Godzilla, crushing what life remained from him. His fading dorsal spines began to crack under the stress. Then Ghidorah's wings started to beat, stronger, harder, till incredibly, he lifted the 90,000-ton lizard from the ground. First slowly, but then more quickly. He sent it hundreds of feet into the air. As he stood amongst smoke and flames, viewing the Titans high against the storm-raked sky, Mark felt a sense of dislocation, as if he wasn't in Boston in the 21st century, but in a volcanic wasteland millions of years ago, just like a little rat-like primate ancestor watching the gods fighting it out, desperate to find a safe place to hide. Ghidorah opened his claws, and Godzilla fell. A titan cast from the heavens. He began to burn, and as the flames surrounded him, his form blurred, and he looked like a fiery spear, like a meteor plummeting toward the earth. A giant reptile struck the ground like a bomb, and when the dust settled, Mark saw him lying motionless in the crater his body had carved into Boston. He looked dead, but Ghidorah didn't think so, or maybe he just wasn't taking chances. He rose above the fallen giant, his electrical charge building, preparing to end their ancient duel once and for all. Serizawa had died for nothing, as did Vivian, and countless pilots and soldiers. With Godzilla dead and the Orca destroyed, nothing could hold Ghidorah in check, stop him from remaking the world as he saw fit. There was nothing they could do about it but watch as the dragon's charge increased, the bolted lightning of 100 storms. Ghidorah built his fury, and when his body could no longer keep it in, he let it go, the death blow. Like Ghidorah, Mark had been so intent on Godzilla, he hadn't noticed Mothra. Torn and battered, she pulled herself onto Godzilla, spreading her wings to shield him from Ghidorah. Then, with a defiant screech, she launched herself at the dragon. She didn't get far. Lightning blasted from Ghidorah's mouth and struck through her, and she vanished in a burst of light. All that remained was a glowing rainbow cloud of particles that began to fall gently upon Godzilla, like a light show in the moonlight. Ghidorah's eyes sparkled with dark, malicious glee as he regarded the internal cloud that was all that remained of Mothra. It wasn't the expression of an animal that had bested another, or of a predator regarding its prey. Ghidorah enjoyed killing. He lived for it. In no hurry, the dragon returned his attention to Godzilla. At this distance, it was hard to tell, but it looked like the fallen titan was starting to take on a dull, reddish-orange sheen, as if lava was welding up from beneath his skin. Maddie felt her throat close up, and tears nearly start once more, but then things began shaking again. Ghidorah was savaging Godzilla with all three heads, two wrapped around him like a boa constrictors, while the other bit into his neck. With each bite, Godzilla's glow grew weaker, and while Ghidorah's wounds closed up and vanished, Godzilla cried out a terrible, mournful sound. The great titan was dying. Her father lifted Maddie in his arms and ran towards the offspring. Over his shoulder, she saw her mom activate the Orca, heard its heartbeat song begin. In the distance, she heard a familiar screech. Monster Zero's head came up. He dropped Godzilla's listless body and swung around, searching for the source of the hated sound. The threat of his supremacy that he somehow could not see. All three heads focused on them. The monster started towards them with terrible speed, knocking down everything in its path. Skyscrapers crumbled in dust in its wake. They needed to go. She knew what it was like to be face to face with this guy. And every nerve in her body screamed at the thought of being there again. Her mom picked up the Orca and ran like hell towards the offspring. Dr. Chan and men didn't know helped her father get on board. Maddie, thank God, Chen said. Her dad climbed in, and now they were waiting on Mom. But Monster Zero was coming, fast, more full of rage than ever. "We gotta lift off," a woman in the military uniform said. The pilot obeyed the order. The offspring began to rise. Mom still wasn't on board. Dad moved over to the door so he could pull Mom up when she got there. "We're going to make it," she thought. "All of us. Mom still will get on board. We'll take off." She tried not to think past that, which was faster in the air. Monster Zero, the offspring. She was afraid she knew. Emma glanced back at Monster Zero and made a quick, brutally honest calculation. Mark and Maddie weren't going to make it if the offspring waited until she was aboard. Even if they managed to get a few yards off the ground, it was hopeless. Monster Zero would follow the orca wherever it went. If she turned it off, he probably would kill them anyways. Either way, he would return to finish off Godzilla, unless she stopped him. So she quit running and instead watched the offspring continue to rise. "Mom!" Maddie shouted. Emma focused on Mark's surprised face and saw him take it in and understand what she was doing. "I love you," she said. Knowing they couldn't hear it, she said it more for herself than for him. She had kept those feelings walled off for so long, but it all came back so effortlessly now. The good times, falling in love a whole new way. When they first saw Andrew, held him, that tiny little primate, and again, when Madison came along, nothing was ever perfect. There were always tough times and arguments, but they had balance. Then, when something went wrong, they always recovered. Still carrying the orca, she rushed to the Humvee, laid the machine on the passenger seat, started the engine and gunned it, driving away from her family as fast as she could, managed through the wreckage of Boston. A glance back showed it was working. Ghidorah took a sharp turn, dismissing the offspring. Coming directly after her, "You won't touch them, you son of a bitch," she thought. "You won't touch my family." Mark saw Emma's lips form the words. He saw her expression and believed her, that she still loved him, and he knew what she was about to do. Maddie understood too. "No! Mom! Stop! Stop!" she shouted. Mark was still at the door. He leaned forward towards his retreating wife. He couldn't lose her again. He could jump, wrestle her into the offspring or something. They weren't too high yet. Foster might not come back for Emma, but she would come back for him. But the others grabbed him, pulled him back. He could only watch helplessly as Emma boarded the Humvee and drove away into the ruins of Boston as the offspring rose higher, and Ghidorah turned to follow her, as she had surely planned. Emma was right, of course. Leading the monster away was the only way to save Maddie. He just wished he thought of it first. "Give him hell, girl," he thought, as hot tears of pride, love, and loss burned at the corner of his eyes. "Daddy," Maddie thought, through her tears, hugging him hard. He hugged her back, his girl, his Maddie. Death might break them apart, but nothing else could. Emma didn't know how far she would get. Far enough? She hoped. For the offspring to vanish into the smoke and ash. For Mark and Maddie to fly to safety. Was Godzilla dead? When she last seen him, he was limp, unmoving. If he was, there was nothing to stop Ghidorah. The other Titans would fall in line with his will, and they would continue transforming the Earth into whatever it was Ghidorah wanted. But if Mark and Maddie survived, Chen, a few others, then it still wasn't over. Mark could build a new orca, a better one, or maybe what was left of Monarch would come up with something new. A bioweapon, a drug, a way to short-circuit Ghidorah's energy attack. At least there was hope. Hope that someone could undo some part of the terrible damage she had unleashed. She wouldn't be part of it or see it done. Hope would have to be enough for her, and love. She dodged the Humvee around piles of rubble and the few buildings still standing, working for every second she could get. The orca continued throbbing away, and Ghidorah was right there. Everything went golden white as pain, like she had never known, jagged through her body, striking every nerve like a match. The agony didn't last long as it faded. She was away, rolling, bouncing, till the Humvee fetched up against something and stopped. She'd been thrown clear, she realized. Not that that meant much. She couldn't feel anything, but her vision was still clear. Ghidorah stooped towards her, sniffing. "Come on, you bastard," she thought. Behind Ghidorah, an orange glow appeared, a colossal shape eclipsing the burning city. Emma smiled. She'd done it, given Godzilla enough time to recover, time to restore the balance. "Long live the king," she gasped out. Godzilla, his body screaming, his dorsal fin pulsing red, burning like a dying sun, charging towards Ghidorah. She couldn't breathe anymore. That was okay. That was fine. She closed her eyes, saw Mark, Madison, and Andrew. It was enough. As the offspring rose above the battlefield, Mark's glaze tracked the Humvee, vanishing behind debris or drifting smoke, but reappearing. "Jesus God," Stratton said. "Look, fucking A," Barnes said. He followed their glazes to the crater where Godzilla's body lay, only he wasn't in it anymore. Massively wounded, he had pulled himself up and was staggering after Ghidorah, first uncertainly, then the stronger and greater strides. He was glowing red, now pulsing with an inner radiance that shone through seams in his scales, leaked from his eyes, as if his heart was the core of a red giant star about to go supernova. Mark tore his gaze away, looking for Emma. She could still make it. He didn't see the Humvee, but he saw Ghidorah, and then, just ahead of him, racing out from behind a crushed building, the tiny vehicle. Ghidorah came down on her like a hammer, blasting the Humvee with his lightning breath. Energy arced all around it, and the car went flying. Then Ghidorah blotted his view, head swinging down towards where he'd seen the Humvee stop. The officer's rotators flipped over, and they were an airplane now, plowing as hard and fast as his craft was able. Mark felt his ears pop to gain elevation. Below, Ghidorah whipped around towards Godzilla, blasting him with lightning, but the big lizard just took it, absorbed it, kept coming, pulsing brighter and faster. Again and again, the three-head dragon struck, but Godzilla, despite his wounds, didn't even slow down. He collided with Ghidorah like a walking mountain, wrapping him up in his forearms, grappling him close, and as his dorsal fin pulsed faster and faster, ignoring the dragon's attacks as he thrashed his grass. The pulses were now so fast, they were almost continuous. They sheeted through Ghidorah like a hard wind, ripping his wings and burning them away, as if they were made of tissue paper. Ghidorah screamed and blasted Godzilla with all three heads, but then another wave of radiation pulsed out and disintegrated two of the dragon's heads. Ghidorah slumped to the ground, wreathing. As Godzilla stepped on his chest and as another pulse built within the great lizard, Ghidorah's remaining head shrieked. Mark shielded Madison with his body and tried not to look, desperately hoping they were out of range. He saw through his closed eyelids the flash that engulfed what remained of Boston. He held Maddie tighter. As the offspring suddenly jumped through the air, the blood drained from his head, and then they were in free fall. But for a moment, the offspring slapped onto a thermal. Her wings caught, and they were flying again. A little shaky, maybe, but well enough. Mark opened his eyes. He saw a mushroom cloud lifting from Boston. The offspring started a wide turn around the city as the cloud continued to lift, and it gradually began clearing below. Through the smoke, downtown Boston was a wasteland of blackened ruins, burning streets, twisted steel beams. He was reminded of the ruins of cities beneath the sea in 1,000 of years. Would there be anyone left to wonder what happened to the civilization he had been born into?
Hey everyone, how are you guys? I just want to let you all know that there was a handful cut from this video in terms of like the actual book. There was a lot of human stuff I cut out. Nothing too like extreme you're missing, I guess, but there was more in depth and stuff. The book has way more content than what I just posted in this video, but specifically what people wanted me to talk about. So I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, if you did, please try to subscribe. I really highly recommend you get this book. It's really cheap. I'll put an Amazon link in the description. I got mine from Books A Million, I think for like $5. So, but Amazon will have a link. There's, stuff going on right now. It might not deliver as quick or whatever, but highly recommend you get it and own your own copy of it so you can read it for yourself and get more invested. Because there's a lot of stuff that I can bring to life that this book will whenever you read it. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, have a good night. Peace.